dark shadows and in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast, we are the brave and bold.
Venezuela is a nation rich with natural resources such as oil and gold and diamonds and other minerals, yet it is experiencing a crisis in which most people cannot find food or medicine. In the past several months, there has been great social unrest in Venezuela. Venezuelans are going out onto the streets and demanding their basic needs and storming delivery trucks and stores to get their hands on supplies. It's like the motherfucking Walking Dead. Their daily activities are disrupted by water rationing and electricity cuts and have resulted from long-term neglect to basic infrastructure. Most people would take this as a sign that their government has simply failed. Many onlookers may assume Venezuela's leaders are just incompetent. Why else would they not be able to provide the people with the basic necessities like water and electricity and security and opportunity? As a Venezuelan expat, having served in the Venezuelan Foreign Service for 2 decades and directing a program of Inter-American Development Bank, I know the crisis is a result of an effort to gain and maintain power, just as the Castro brothers have successfully done in Cuba. It is a call for revolution. Hugo Chavez came to power after unsuccessfully attempting a coup by winning an election in 1998. He won by selling the idea of giving power to the people and ending the corruption of the traditional political parties that had governed Venezuela for the last quarter century. He won the election by a convincing margin, and he started his presidency with the support of the people and a barrel of oil going for more than $100. His original popularity and success permitted him to accomplish many of his goals that in other circumstances he would have been very difficult. In 2012, a member of the former Venezuelan president's inner circle went public, alleging details of a plan he did not want to be part of and rejected. Oh boy. Guasoyano Pero Lameda, a former general under President Hugo Chavez, shared details of how Chavez and his supporters allegedly intended to carry out a Bolivarian revolution he campaigned on. Chavez called for a revolution and expressed a rejection of imperialism that sought to establish democratic socialism for the 21st century. But Lameda claimed Chavez's plan to accomplish this involved taking control of all branches of power: executive, legislative, judicial, and military. He was consolidating power. Once in power, Chavez replaced the existing Congress by creating a new National Assembly, which he controlled, and he used this new National Assembly to rewrite the Constitution to perpetuate himself in power. The presidential periods were originally 5-year terms without the possibility of immediate re-election. Former presidents could run again only after 2 terms had passed. The National Assembly changed it to 6-year terms with unlimited re-elections and extended these new parameters to governors and other elected officials. Chavez served as president for 14 years until his death in 2013. The new National Assembly also reshaped the Supreme Court. They alleged the existing justices were corrupt and inserted Chavez's followers in their place. Chavez created an image of an enlightened world leader, selling oil at discount to many Latin American nations to buy goodwill. For example, he struck a deal to provide Cuba with deeply discounted oil in exchange for Cuban doctors. He started a war against the private sector. He nationalized thousands of private companies and industries. We're going to get into a lot more of that part later. To the amazement of his followers and to the astonishment of business owners and consumers who did not see it coming. Chavez's style was confrontational, disrespectful, and self-centered. He would spend countless hours on national TV offending anybody who would dare to disagree with him. And he was known for reprimanding and firing cabinet ministers on live TV. Telemundo! Countless hours of the show Allo Presidente were produced. Chavez's legacy haunts his successor. Nicolas Maduro, the current president of Venezuela, was previously a bus driver, a union leader, and an unconditional follower of Chavez. He's also got a swell mustache. In return, Chavez appointed him as a member of the National Assembly, the Secretary of State, the Vice President, and then his heir. Maduro has tried to imitate Chavez's style, making Chavez an immortal figure, promoting rituals and making his burial place the center of worship and spending lavishly to create a cult centered on the eternal commander. Unfortunately for Maduro, who does not have the charisma or the political instincts of his predecessor, a barrel of oil is now $40 instead of $100. The population is restless with poverty, which did not improve as Chavez promised. Rampant and very public corruption has beleaguered the public sector and armed forces. There is no opportunity in the private sector since it has been destroyed by nationalization. We're going to get into nationalization. Using compensation or expropriation, we're going to get into expropriation specifically, the private companies. The local currency is totally worthless thanks to Chavez's legacy. Maduro still holds control over the Supreme Court of Justice and the armed forces, which was on total display yesterday. His followers have organized civilian groups called collective to mobilize against opposition. He has the support of the militia, a large group of paramilitaries, well-trained and uniformed, and unconditional followers of the eternal commander Chavez. How long will this perpetuation of power last? Only time will tell, but the tides may be turning. In December, Venezuelans expressed their discontent and voted a sea change into the National Assembly, which is now controlled by the opposition. The international community is questioning the procedures by which several well-known opposition leaders have been jailed. The decision of Election Commission to delay a referendum. Last month, an organization of American states, an organization with 35 member nations in the region, approved a resolution to review the social, political, and economic reality of Venezuela, then may apply their democratic charter to force the Venezuelan government to call a referendum that would end Maduro's term as president. Meanwhile, the situation continues to worsen. The pressure from the Venezuelan people who are seeking to end their hunger is growing by the day. This is from an article called How Today's Crisis in Venezuela Was Created by Hugo Chavez's Revolutionary Plan. It was published July 5th, 2016. So, there you go. We got a hot one tonight. It's a hot time in the old town tonight.
The Abercaps, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Some like it hot, hot, hot. Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Abracast. I'm John Towers. You're like, what are you talking about? Why is there a new episode right now? It's because things are happening in the world, everybody. Things are happening in the world. I got to talk about them. So, I'm John Towers. Tonight we're asking a big question, a big poignant question when we look around to our political figures who are openly talking about socialism, who are openly saying Maduro is not so bad. We're going to get to a lot of that later. We're asking the huge question. We've all by now seen the military monster trucks ramming into civilians and so forth in Venezuela. So tonight we are asking the question, what the heck is happening in Venezuela and why? Why is it happening? And you're not going to believe some of this stuff, but we're ready to go. I've been keeping a track for this for a long time, but when I saw that BMP or whatever it was run into that crowd of people, I'm like, now we've got to start talking about this. We've got to start talking about it right now. So there's a ton of featured article. This is an article episode. We're dealing with a ton of articles. The best part about article episodes is it's easy to find them and to cross check me, right? So there's going to be some things that I say in here where you're going to be like, no. Snopes said that that's not true. Well, I'm telling you, the article names are going to be in there. Find the actual articles and fuck Snopes. What? My phone's going off. Sorry, I got to get back to you later. So don't just be like, I'm fact checking John and Snopes.com says this is false. I'm telling you, go find the articles and fucking read them for yourself. Like that's what I'm saying. Fact checking nowadays, it's just bullshit. It's run by propaganda. So this isn't, oh God, I don't know how to frame it. Okay, so I'm not going to frame it. We're just going to get into it. Here's a couple of the articles we're talking about. Venezuela Unrest, the timeline that shows how the country got to this point. How today's crisis in Venezuela was created by Hugo Chavez's revolutionary plan. We already did that one. 5 ways Hugo Chavez has destroyed the Venezuelan economy by Stephen Kempel. Ocasio-Cortez declines to denounce Maduro. That's loaded, and they buried the lead. We're going to get into that by Mildred McArdle, which was just in March. It was just in March. This is a big one. Oh, no, this isn't a big one. We're just going to get into it. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Fuck, I feel like I'm forgetting to do something. Oh, yeah. If you're playing along at home, this is the time where you summon your vessel of the art and you mix up your weapon of mass distraction, whatever it may be, whatever your weapon of mass distraction may be. Mine is a gin jihad. There's 2 shot glasses worth of gin in here, a tray of ice, one of those squirts of lemon juices, those plastic lemon juice squirts, and some good old fashioned cheap ass diet tonic water from Giant Eagle is in here. And this is it. When I make the concoction in here, it's like a Looney Tune commercial. A little mushroom cloud comes up and it forms a skull. And I'm set to go for like 20 or 30 minutes with one of these things. So go ahead and mix up your weapon of mass distraction. Here we go. We're going to get into this. So with the cold open, we kind of set up the timeline, right? We're starting basically in 1998 when Hugo Chavez was elected. Now, in a certain part of this, we're going to go back in time to talk a little bit about that. But just to start chronologically, hey, the Avengers just came out. We're going to time travel like the Avengers. 2011. Bernie Sanders spake thus in an editorial called Close the Gap, the Disparities That Threaten America. Now, if you Snopes this, did Bernie Sanders ever talk shit on Venezuela? You're going to get articles that say, no, this is a falsehood. No, this is a whatever. Go to fucking Bernie Sanders' website. It's in the must read section, this article. Close the gaps, disparities that threaten America. I'm only using a snippet of this, but this will prove my point. This is quoting Bernard Sanders. Comrade Bernard Sanders. These days, the American dream is more apt to be realized in South America, in places such as Ecuador and Venezuela and Argentina, where incomes are actually more equal today than they are in the land of Horatio Alger. Who is the Banana Republic now? Wow, who is the Banana Republic now? This fucking article, this op-ed or whatever it is, did not age well. Banana Republics are known for arresting and imprisoning the party in powers, the who's in power, their political enemies. And think back to the cold open, where this guy's fucking running around, locking up his enemies, appointing a successor, rewriting the Constitution. Who's the Banana Republic now, Bernie? It's amazing that they haven't took this down yet. It's amazing that they haven't took this down yet. I just pulled this off of his website today. I just pulled it off his website today. So that was 2011. 2012, Venezuela has brought new gun laws into effect, which bans the commercial sales of firearms and ammunition. Until now, anyone with a gun permit could buy arms from a private company. Under the new law, only the army, police, and certain groups like security companies will be able to buy arms from state-owned weapons manufacturers and importers. The ban is the latest attempt by the government to improve security and cut crime ahead of the elections in October. So another thing I didn't really get into here, but I'll just drop some knowledge right here, is when Chavez got elected, the crime rate skyrocketed, predictably. This crime rate skyrocketed. And he uses this as a reason to start confiscating these guns. Wake up. Wake up. He's using the crime to confiscate guns. Venezuela saw more than 18,000 murders last year, so that would have been 2011. And the capital, Caracas, is thought to be one of the most dangerous cities in Latin America. So we'll just skip ahead. Take that at face value. We'll just skip ahead. Hugo Chavez's government says listen to his ultimate aim. Hugo Chavez's government says the ultimate aim is to disarm all civilians. But his opponent says the police and the government may not have the capacity or the will to enforce these new laws. Well, let's jump ahead a few years and just watch some monster trucks rolling into some fucking poor unarmed protesters. Criminal violence is set to be a major issue in the presidential election later this year. The campaign group, the Venezuela Violence Observatory, said last year that the violence has risen steadily since Mr. Chavez took office in 1999. That's from. This is not American. This is sometimes, in order to get real news, you have to go overseas. This is actually from the BBC. Venezuela bans private gun ownership. The BBC was published in 2013. Venezuela bans private gun ownership. BBC. That's the article from 2012 that I just talked about. In 2013, on March 5th, Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, 58, dies of cancer. Good riddance. Within a month, Maduro, Chavez's hand-picked replacement, is elected president by margin of 1.6% amid claims of corruption. The National Assembly, which we're already familiar with that, the country's legislative body, does not recognize Maduro's presidency. Chavez was a popular president because he nationalized the oil industry. We're going to get into this a lot, and used the profits to fund food subsidies, education, and healthcare programs. That spending continues under Maduro until the revenue from oil reserves drops around this time, creating a deficit that begins to tank the oil or the country's economy. Well, why is the oil reserves tanking? That's a fair question. I don't know why when I give a voice to questions, I'm always like, why is the oil reserve tanking? That's a fair question. I'm glad you asked. but it's also totally predictable. In the 70s, the country nationalized the natural gas industry, and predictably it crashed by like 50%. After they opened it back up, well, what happened is they opened it back up and they got foreign investors to come in to save them. So these foreign investors came in, and it got opened back up, and it started to recover. And by 1999, which we know is when Hugo Chavez took office, it had recovered by 3.5 million barrels a day. In 2002, Chavez expropriated the oil industry. So like they did just in the 70s and 80s before him, where they nationalized the industry. This is actually what fascism is. It was when the government comes in and takes over a private industry. That's really the clearest definition of fascism. Everyone thinks it's like flag waving and hating Jews and all that stuff. None of that is true. The actual definition of fascism is exactly what Obama did with the auto industry, is where you go in and you take over an industry, or what he did with the healthcare industry. He took over 1/3 of the economy just with a stroke of his pen. So take that, take it. But what Chavez did is it's different. He didn't nationalize it the way that they nationalized in the 70s and 80s. He expropriated it, the oil industry. What that means is he went in and he fired 19,000 private employees, and he replaced them with people loyal to him. Basically, the state took over the industry by employees. He was like, fuck all of you, you're fired. And he moved people that would do his bidding in. And once this happened, oil production, guess what happened? Can you guess what happened? It happened before. This is a thing. People don't understand their history. Happened once, happened twice, happened 3 times, happens again. Oil production nosedived. Forbes actually has a great article with a bar graph and everything, so you guys can so everyone can understand it. Not you guys. That's how I understand it too. It's an article, and it has this bar graph, and you can see where it dips after the nationalization. You see where it goes up after they open it back up and the foreign investors get in there, and then you see when Chavez took it over, it just flatline. It just fucking nosedives, flatlines. So this is what happens. And then 2014, opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez and Maria Corina Machado lead protests to begin the campaign to remove Maduro from office amid growing shortages of food and other goods and economic recessions that have begun to grow. Lopez is charged with fomenting unrest in the protest, and he will spend 3 years in prison before he is just put under house arrest and released from prison. 2015. On December 6, 2015, an opposition Democratic Party gains a supermajority in the National Assembly. So this is Chavez. Remember, he got rid of the Congress and he invented this new National Assembly, and the opposition was able to take it over with the free election, but they couldn't get Maduro because they're all fucking corrupt. Maduro moves to block the party's power by stacking the country's Supreme Court. This is when you hear the people losing the culture war talk about, hey, we need to increase the number of judges on the Supreme Court. That should send a fucking red flag up to you. It just should. It just should. This is why people are lionizing Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and they're like, oh my God, she works out like 20 minutes a day. She's going to live forever. We're coming after Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Oh, where was I? Fuck. I have so much to get through. I gotta stop going off on these tangents. The court blocks a handful of legislators prior to their swearing in. 2016, Maduro declares an economic emergency in January as oil prices continue to fall. They're not just falling, they plummet. They're in free fall. He says the government cannot afford to import goods, including food. Imagine a system so fucked up they can't sell oil. Like, think about that. Think about the state of affairs of Venezuela. They're so broke they can't sell oil. In 2017, I may have to take a break here pretty soon. The spring of 2017, the Venezuelan Supreme Court bans an opposition leader from participating in elections. See, the Supreme Court, and this is another thing with liberal, like we can talk about this in our country because there's complete parallel lines. The reason the courts and the judiciary are so important to these statists, these globalists that we're fighting in this war, is they're like, fine, we can lose elections and we can lose referendums and we can lose all of these things, you know, but all these things get passed up to the court, and if we have the court, they're going to win. And our definitions, like the lines are so blurred between our checks and balances and our three branches right now of government. It's working. It's working all the time. Like you see, like people are like, they sue President Trump and some judge from fucking somewhere in New York steps in and goes, whoa, hold on. He can't do that. Well, guess what? I mean, just guess what? You're a judge. Your job is just to interpret the law. I could spend probably 2 hours on this, but I got to keep moving. Okay, they can't import food. In 2017, in the spring of 2017, the Venezuelan Supreme Court bans an opposition leader from participating in elections. Protests break out across the country on July 30th. The Constituent Assembly is created to change the country's constitution, and the National Assembly is stripped of its power. Venezuela's, here we go. This also happened in 20. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to take a break real quick. This is a good one to end on, though. Venezuela's starving people are now eating the zoo animals. This is by Tim Worstall. This is not by Fox News. This is by Forbes, August 2017. Reports in from Venezuela that starving people in that country, the beneficiary of those glories of Bolivarian socialism, are now breaking into zoos and butchering animals in order to eat them. We have seen this before, of course, when the Parisians did it. They actually have the excuse that the Germans had been besieging the city for 99 days. The Venezuelan equivalent stems from nothing but ghastly, silly, incompetent economic policy. But then such is socialism. Quote, zoo animals are being stolen from parks in western Venezuela, and the police believe that they are being snatched to be eaten by starving local population. A wave of animal thefts across the city of Macacabo, near the Colombian border, including tapirs and buffalo, have been linked to chronic food shortages in Venezuela. Most recently, two collared peccaries, similar in appearance to boars, were stolen over the week, local police say. We're going to go on. What we presume is that they were taken with the intention of eating them. Luis Morales, an official of the Zulia Division of National Police, told reporters on Tuesday. The chaotic collapse of the country's socialist economic model has created chronic food shortages that have fueled malnutrition and left millions seeking food anywhere they can find it, including trash cans and dumpsters. That's what bad economic management can do for you. You could reduce the country with the largest oil reserves to a nation of dumpster divers. Well done there. Well done. Okay, I got like a little bit wound up, so I gotta mention that subscribestar.com/abercast. I'm over at Subscribestar now. I'm like, fuck Patreon because of all this techno censorship business. So head over to Subscribestar. There's like 14 hour-long exclusive episodes over there, and I'm going to start adding new ones every month going forward. So that's where you'll find me if you want to support the show, and I thank you very much. Don't forget to go to abracast.com, social media links, mailing lists. At the mailing list, you can find graphic elements of the show, worksheets, notes. We're in the middle of wrapping up our Kabbalah episodes. So if you listen to that and you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? You just sign in the mailing list. You get a link. You can go and like download like basically my show notes where I'm drawing out like the Kabbalistic tree of life and the lightning path to get through it and the different septenaries and all this. All that stuff's up there for you. On the website, there's a feature topic link. So if you're interested in certain topics, you don't have to hunt through the playlist for them. You could just find them. You know, it's like modern military, Israel, Genesis, general occult, like tarot, all the tarot stuff's in one area. So you might want to check that out. And while you're there, you might want to stop and check out some comic books and some graphic novels. Also got a new thing. We just did a giveaway for a Vessel of the Art. There are these big full-size mason jars with the show logo on them. So when I'm telling you guys to summon your Vessel of the Art, you can actually just grab your Vessel of the Art and make a drink with me. Whatever you put in there, that's fine. But I had some people reaching out saying, how do I buy one of these instead of win one? So I created a little shop and I got them. I'm just testing. It's like a little pilot program. So if you're interested in them, go check that out. We also have a Facebook page. You can check that out, and a YouTube page. Please check that out. And then also keep your eyes peeled for the American Sermon. It's that spin-off podcast that I've been doing. We're done with the American Sermon, and it's going to be changing this week. It's going to be changing next week into the Sermon of the Wolf. We're going to do a 6-part deep dive into werewolves. So thank you guys for sitting through all that stuff. And I just needed to calm down a little bit. My heart rate was racing a little bit. I just had to get that out of the way. I had to get out of the way. So let's get back into this. Let's get back into this Venezuelan business. Where we were in 2018. This is last year. It's all going to kick off after this. Maduro is reelected president May 20th. It is an election that is widely considered to be rigged. The United States and the Lima Group, mostly right-leaning Latin American governments, do not recognize the results of this controversial election. The annual inflation rate reaches 1,300,000% in the 12 months prior to November 2018, according to a study by the National Assembly. 2019. On January 5th, Guaidó is appointed as head of the opposition National Assembly, and he cites Article 233 and 333 of the Venezuelan Constitution, which says if an election is in question, the head of the National Assembly takes over as interim president. So the political maneuvering this guy had to do to get to where he was is probably a pretty amazing story. Maduro totally ignores the Constitution and is inaugurated January 10th, and Venezuelans protest. 2 weeks later, Guaido, I don't know how to pronounce this, the guy we've been talking about, calls for Maduro to step down and claims that under the country's constitution, he should be the interim president while they sort this shit out. As an American, United States issues a statement of support for Guaido. Let's just get this out of the way. Guaido. Maduro cuts diplomatic ties with America. On January 28th, the U.S. implements sanctions preventing Venezuelan oil company PDVSA from collecting money on crude exports to the United States. This move cuts off the main support of the Venezuelan government revenue. See, you should have been paying attention. It just seems like these guys are not smart at all. On January 30th, they're like, fuck them. We can get by without them. How? How can you get by without us? That's laughable. On January 30th, the Venezuelan Supreme Court imposes a travel ban on Guaido and freezes his assets. Banana Republic. On February 4th, Germany, France, Britain, and Spain announced that they back Guaido. On February 8th, the U.S. sends this part is fucked up. Sends humanitarian aid to the country amid severe shortages of food and medicine, but the aid was turned back at the Venezuelan border with Colombia. Maduro also stopped aid from coming into the country via the border with Brazil on February 21st. Remember Bernie said that this is the best place to go for the American dream? Is this place? They can't sell oil. They refuse to feed people. Oh, come on, Bernie. It can't be all that great. During the month, Guaido, I'm sorry, I'm butchering that. I just don't have time to fucking sit here. Guaido urges high-ranking military members to join the opposition to Maduro's presidency. In an op-ed to the New York Times, he offers amnesty to anyone who opposes Maduro's government. February 25th, Guaido meets with Vice President Mike Pence and the presidents of Colombia, Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina, and Ecuador. On February 26, President Donald Trump issues an ultimatum to the Venezuelan military to side with Guaido or be prepared to, quote, lose everything. If you choose this path, you will find no safe harbor and no easy exit and no way out, Trump said in a speech. You will lose everything. Also on that day, Hugo Carvajal, the country's former intelligence head, denounces Maduro. In April, Carvajal is arrested in Spain on drug trafficking charges. On March 5th, Guaido gets support from the unions. And he tweets about it. March 11th, after 5 days of blackouts in the country, Guaido declares a state of emergency. On March 16th, Guaido says he is launching a renewed campaign to oust Maduro before reclaiming the presidential palace. On March 21st, Trump's national security advisor John Bolton says Venezuelan government has made a big mistake by detaining Guaido's chief of staff. So we're just going to take a break real quick here because we're in March now. This is just 2 months ago. March 2019, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, spake thus at a press conference to mark the opening of her first congressional office in Queens. The freshman Democrat was asked about the Venezuelan crisis and her willingness to, quote, denounce the Maduro regime, unquote. And she said, I'm going to do the voice. She said, quote, yeah, so I think that this is absolutely a complex issue, unquote. Ocasio-Cortez began, quote, I think it's important that we approach this very carefully, unquote. All right. Pearls of wisdom. Thank you very much, AOC. The Congresswoman went on and she said, it's, quote, absolutely concerned with the humanitarian crisis that is happening, unquote, adding that it is important that the, quote, any solution that we have centers on the Venezuelan people and centers on the democracy of the Venezuelan people first, unquote. Quote, I am generally opposed to U.S. interventionism as a principle, but particularly under this administration and under his leadership, I think it's a profound mistake, unquote, Ocasio-Cortez said. And moving forward a little bit, in an interview published last week, remember, this is from March 2019. In an interview published last week, another freshman Democrat, Representative Ilhan Omar, responds, quote, absolutely not, unquote. I'm not going to do her voice because it'll sound like I'm being racist. I'll do her voice the same. Ihan Omar responds, quote, absolutely not, unquote. When she was asked whether she, like the U.S. and dozens of other countries, recognizes the opposition leader Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate head of state. So this was 2 months ago. We have these two dolts sitting here talking about this is a very complex situation, and I totally think it's complex, and we shouldn't really do anything about it. April 30th. That was yesterday, 2019, Venezuela crisis. Guaido calls for uprising as clashes erupt. The New York Times by Nicholas Casey. It was the boldest move yet by Guaido, Venezuela's opposition leader. At sunrise, he stood flanked by soldiers at an Air Force base in the heart of the capital, saying a rebellion was at hand. Mutinous security forces supporting him had released the country's most famed political prisoner. National Guardsmen stood at Guaido's side as others joined marches to support the protesters that they had spent years repressing. In the streets, anti-government demonstrators clashed with forces loyal to the president amid reports of live fire, rubber bullets, and tear gas. A health clinic in Caracas took in 69 people injured during the day. An armored vehicle rammed protesters, but it was not immediately clear how many people were hurt. Yet, at the end of the day, Mr. Guaido fell short of the prize he sought, the toppling of President Nicolas Maduro, who has relied on force, intimidation, and wildly discredited elections to remain in power. So I guess this is just a meditation on how fast shit can fall apart when you get the wrong people in office. You know, I guess this is just a reflection on the divide that we have in our country when people are like, it's super complex and we shouldn't really do anything about it. No, he is not a dictator. He's not a dictator. Like, so, you know, we have people that can't see 2 weeks in front of their face. They can't see reality 2 weeks in front of their face. They have no context in, history. They have no historical context. In most people's eyes, I find that anything that happened outside of their lifetime, they're oblivious. They're oblivious. That's why I hammer reading so much on my podcast. Because, and that's also why I hammer putting things in context so much on my podcast. Because people just don't, it doesn't seem to me that people don't do it. I'm trying to stop talking in absolutes and everything. Trying to become more of a malleable kind of personality, I guess, or something. But it, like, they just don't get people, they just don't understand it. Or they're biased so hard. It's just bananas. So that's my spiel. So here we go. This month, I was asked to be a guest host on 2 different female-oriented podcasts, which I thought was fantastic. I was a guest host on the Women Behind the Veil podcast. What they do is they talk about powerful women in history and mythology. It's actually really interesting. They did a thing on Kali and the Black Madonna, which I actually kind of learned some stuff from, which I thought was great. But they had me come on, and they just kind of started, but they had me come on, I think, in their 3rd or 4th episode, and we talked about Boudica, the Celtic British female warrior that fucked up a bunch of Romans in Britain. So it was a really fun episode. So I would encourage you guys to go check that out, especially if you want to hear, strong female, Avengers just came out. We just got the whole Captain Marvel bullshit and all that stuff. So if you want to kind of revel in that, like, this Boudica story is fascinating. And I went over there and we talked, I believe it was for an hour, and we got to tell this story, and it was really fun. And then, I went on Magic and Mediums podcast, and we talked about ritual magic. And I had Magic and Mediums on my podcast, the midweek show last week, and we talked about natural magic. So I thought we would trade off. And so when I was over there, we talked a lot about a bunch of stuff. We talked about Aleister Crowley, Goetia, my obsession with Lady Gaga showed up. So there was that. So if you guys are looking for more podcasts to check out, especially some female oriented podcasts, those two places are great to go. And, reach out to them. Tell them how you found them. I would appreciate that. In other news, I'm over at subscribestar.com/Abercast. It's a freedom of speech sort of Patreon. Like, I'm never going to get kicked off of Subscribestar, no matter what I say, where you can't really say that about Patreon anymore. All the Patreon exclusive episodes are now migrated over there. It's the only place you can get them now. So there's Crowley stuff, the Lima stuff over there, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. There's sex magic stuff over there. I'm missing something. I think that I'm missing something. Anyhow, going forward, there'll be more exclusive episodes over there every month. And I think right now the subscription rate is only like $3 per, and you get everything that's over there. There's videos. There's everything you get in the mailing list is over there. So go over there, check it out. Help me pay some bills. I'd appreciate it. Don't forget to check out abercast.com. Social media links are there. Mailing lists. Things are there. In this day, we never know who's going to get deplatformed at any given time. And the mailing list is the one thing that I know I'll always be able to reach out to you guys with. The thing is I don't hardly ever use it. So I'll only use it during an emergency. It's a red phone sort of situation. But if you sign into the mailing list, you get a link to a special part of the website where you go and you get graphic elements of the worksheets, worksheets, notes. When I say graphic elements, what I mean is we're in the middle of the last part of the introduction to Kabbalah stuff. And, if you go there now, sign into the mailing list now, you will get, a link that you'll go and you'll be able to download like all the graphic elements for my Kabbalah episodes. I basically scanned in my notebook where I'm drawing the Kabbalistic tree of life and like the lightning bolt path through them and the three different triangles. All those graphic elements are there. So if you're listening to it, you're like, I don't understand what the fuck this guy's talking about. All you got to do is just download this link and you get it. While you're there, you might want to check out some comic books and graphic novels. It's the summer. You might need some reading material. There's some good stuff there. And also, I just launched kind of like a pilot version of the shop. So we just did last 2 months, we just did a Vessel of the Art giveaway where I'm giving away these full-size mason jars with the podcast logo on them. It's the Vessel of the Art. There's also some other great stuff jammed in there. But I had some people reach out to me and say, hey, where can I buy these? So I have a few on hand, and I'm just kind of like testing the waters and seeing. So if you're interested in something like that, you can look on my Instagram and stuff and on the website to see a picture of them if you want or whatever. But the logo is pretty tough. I've been using the shit out of mine for like 3 months now, and it's still holding on pretty good. So there's that. Check out the Facebook page, the YouTube page, and also keep an eye on what I've been talking about the last 2 months or 3 months, the American Sermon. The American Sermon is over, so next month it's turning into something else. It's turning into the Sermon of the Wolf. We're going to be doing a 6-part deep dive into werewolves, and I am fucking so stoked for this. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, so there's that. And yeah, bros, I guess that's it. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy the show. And reach out to me, say hi, let me know what you think about all this stuff. And if you have, whatever, some kind of opposing view, I disagree with you, but I'm happy to listen and talk about it with you. I'm John Towers. This is Over and Out, Ebercast.com. Boudica, Boudica. Women Behind the Veil podcast. And Magic and Mediums. That's Magic with a K. And Mediums. You can find it. You can find either one of them where you find all your podcasts. Check it out. All right, I'm really going this time. I'm leaving.